We have 4 Livestock Guardian dogs and 1 pet dog. And today I'm going to share with you our story about integrating our pet dogs with our Livestock Guardian dogs. It's beautiful. It's a great smell. The flowers right now are amazing. So to start this story, we have to go back to 2021. We have to start with chickens, and it'll come full circle and it'll all make sense why I'm bringing up the chickens first. But we got chickens in May of 2021 when we first started our homesteading journey. We were living in East Tennessee on 8 acres on a nearly treeless hillside. And over the next year, we lost the occasional chicken here or there to hawks and stray wild dogs. The following May, a year later, we went on our first family vacation. We put our 2 pet dogs up in a kennel and had a friend check in on our chickens. I think at that point we had 8 or 10 chickens remaining, but when we got home, our entire flock had been decimated. We have a feeling it was the stray dogs. We don't really, I mean, maybe it was something else, but that seems like the most likely chance. Whenever a hawk would come, they would pick off one and that was it. It didn't happen very often. But I think without our 2 pet dogs there, barking and making noise and just being a presence there, I think the dogs got brave and ended up coming in, and we didn't really, I mean, we let them free range while we were gone, which was one of our mistakes. So learn from that. But that's what happened. Basically, our homesteading journey came to a quick end in a year as far as the chickens were concerned. Later that year in September, we went to buy our first breeding pair of Nigerian dwarf goats. Since May, we had been learning about Livestock Guardian dogs, and we knew that we wanted, based on what we had learned, we wanted to get an adult dog right away because we had an immediate need for one. So when we went to pick up the goats, we just offhand asked the woman that we were getting the goats from if she had any Livestock Guardian dogs, and if so, if she had one that we could get from her, or if she knew anybody that we could get a grown Livestock Guardian dog from. She did in fact have a Livestock Guardian dog that she wanted to rehome. He wasn't getting along with his older brother, and they were constantly getting into tussles. So we went home with the goats, thought about the dog. He was a mature dog, 5 years old, so he's exactly what we wanted in terms of readiness. He was already trained to goats, so we said yes, she said yes, and a couple weeks later, we picked him up and named him Bear. We had experience with difficult dogs in the past. Our husky mix, Mozzie, was very difficult to settle in. He wanted to be dominant to our kids and to me and my husband, but after a couple months, we got him settled in.
And he's been a great dog since then.
And he's been mostly a great dog since then. If you watch any of our videos, you'll know. We had also had our adopted cattle dog mix, Gunner, for about 10 years, and he was the kind of dog you would keep on a muzzle in public. You just couldn't fully trust him, and it was more so what other people would do, you know, and he just wasn't the kind of dog that you could trust. If a kid came running up and wanted to hug him, or a human, I don't know what it is, people like to get down and talk to the face of a dog, and you just couldn't trust him in that kind of a situation. So he was always on a muzzle in public. On paper, we knew that there could be pronounced differences between our pet dogs and our Livestock Guardian dog, but you don't quite know it until it happens. No amount of studying would have compared to the experience we gained over the past couple of years. So what did we do to prepare for this new Livestock Guardian dog? New to us, Livestock Guardian dog. So based on what the lady that had the goats told us, who had Bear, before we got him, we decided to transition him first into a 10 by 10 kennel when we brought him home. So we set up that kennel and placed it basically with the goats, next to the goats, so that he could watch everything for the first few days. We took him on walks every day, both around our property and with the goats on a leash, but this was kind of where we made our first mistake. We introduced him first on leash to our cattle dog and husky, but it was within the first few days that we took the leashes off and let them intermingle a little bit. Our husky first quarreled with him in our presence over what seemed to be our presence, and so we separated them, but they started barrier aggression because they could see each other through the glass door on our patio. So at that time, we started walking Mozzie and Bear together on a leash, getting progressively closer until there weren't any reactions from the 2 of them. They weren't friends, but they became amicable after that. And for them, that was enough, because in the meantime, a lot was happening. So in October, we brought Bear home, but we had also arranged to get a Great Pyrenees puppy for a litter born in late October. We felt Bear needed help with the situation that we were in. There was a pack of essentially stray dogs that would run around and hassle the cattle that was on the property next to us and would at times hassle us. We were planning on the older dog being settled by the time we picked up the puppy in December and able to help train that puppy. Against our better judgment and some arguing between my husband and me, we ended up opting for 2 puppies. We had Bear for a couple of months, and given some more behavior issues that popped up, we weren't sure of his ability to help raise a puppy or to be compatible with another dog from what we had seen over the last couple of months. The idea we had behind getting 2 puppies was that by the time they hit 2 years old, they would be a good working pair that could cover the rest of our property, while Bear, who at that time would be closer to 8 years old, stayed with the goats in their pasture and turnout. I won't say it's always a terrible idea to get 2 puppies. It's entirely possible, but it requires probably essentially 3 times the work. You want to make sure you're spending plenty of one-on-one time together, that you're giving the 2 puppies time together, but also giving them time apart even when you're not working with them. You might do it different, but the way we wanted to raise our dogs was to be bonded to us and to livestock, and then secondarily to each other. We don't want them to have a strong bond with each other to the point where they would override our input if we told them to do something. While all of this was going on, we needed to, at the last minute, pick up and move from Tennessee to Wisconsin. We were slated to arrive in Wisconsin in the middle of February. And as we approached that date, it became more clear that we likely wouldn't be able to put in the time that we needed to put in to properly raise both of our puppies the way that we wanted to. So we gave our girl Artemis to a friend and kept her brother Apollo. We'll do another video on her. Artemis, that is. When we arrived in Wisconsin, we had no fencing and there was no way to keep the dogs contained. We were still keeping Bear separate from our pet dogs, Mozzie and Gunner. And because there was no fencing, we initially kept the goats and Bear in the livestock trailer, probably for 10 to 12 days while we built a quick turnout. What we ended up doing, because obviously you can't keep a dog in a trailer all day long, we ended up going out multiple times a day to walk Bear and hang out with him. And during those times, we would keep our pet dogs in the house. We would occasionally still walk them together, but it was middle of winter, and most of the time it was just, we need to get out there, we need to spend our time one-on-one with Bear, get him out for a walk, get his energy out and be done. So one very cold evening, I was walking Bear down our new driveway, zipped up to my neck, hood over my head. It was freezing cold. I couldn't really hear a thing, and before you knew it, Mozzie came out of seemingly nowhere. He had figured out a way to open our front door. So here comes Mozzie. He bursts out of nowhere. First thing he does is he runs straight into Bear. Within a couple of seconds, Bear had him by the neck, terrified me because I took a second to figure out what was going on. Felt like an eternity, and then a few seconds later, Bear let go. The dogs then stood a couple feet from each other, growling very intense. I held Bear back, yelling at Mozzie to go, but he stood in the same place, growling and barking. I managed to call my husband and ask him to call Mozzie from the house because Mozzie had great recall and didn't do me very good in that situation, which is also another reason you should teach place. He called Mozzie and Mozzie left. Mozzie did not have a drop of blood on him. Bear showed considerable restraint, in my opinion, because he could have easily killed Mozzie in that situation. And Mozzie's not a small dog. He's 70 pounds, and Bear completely immobilized him in seconds. I would not have blamed Bear one bit if it had gone worse than that, considering Mozzie did not respect his space at all. While that was, I dare say, traumatizing, mainly because it was the first time I'd ever seen LGDs in action, it was also a huge learning experience for us, for the incredible discretion that these dogs can show. And while Bear has his issues, he proved to be incredibly endearing that day, as he spared our pet dog. Now that's not to say all LGD would have done the same. Each one will be different to different degrees. Unfortunately, each attempt to integrate Bear and Mozzie was unsuccessful. They all proved to be big failures, and after careful thought, we stopped trying. They've had moments, once our property was fenced in, where we accidentally let Bear out of where he was and they had a moment together, but we would never trust them together for extended periods of time. came to ask if she could have a cereal bar. She's sweet. They will like run for a mile to come ask me if they can have a granola bar. After running for that long, kid, you can have anything you want. So back to the story. Through all of this, we still had the older cattle dog, but he would basically just go outside, go to the bathroom, come back inside, sleep. He never really spent enough time outside to interact with Bear to where he was pretty much out of the picture in all of this. Actually, that April, a couple months after we came to Wisconsin, we ended up putting him to sleep. He was 14 years old, so he ended up having a great life, even with his issues, and he was a great dog. We have another story about him where he saved one of our little girls from one of those stray dogs at our other house. Maybe I'll tell that story at some point. So remember at this time that we also had our Great Pyrenees puppy Apollo, and as we hit summer, Apollo was much bigger than Mozzie, and little tussles started breaking out between them as Apollo began maturing more into an adult LGD. They both have a dominant dog personality, and neither like to back down. Combine that with Mozzie's complete and utter disregard for personal space, and for us that was a recipe for some brawls. By October, there had been a couple of reasonably large fights between Apollo and Mozzie, to the point where we felt we needed to keep them separated for a little while, a week or two, to help let their hormones calm down. We would then bring them back together, take them on walks, slowly reintroducing them to each other, and then eventually letting them be together for longer periods of time each day. At the time, we had broken up the fights. We had never really witnessed legitimate dog fights, and so it was one of those, well, we're not sure what to do, so let's just break them up. So when my husband and I were both there, he would grab the back legs of one dog, I would grab the back legs of the other dog, and we would pull them apart and break up the fights. When I was alone, there was one I had to break up, and I basically just pulled one dog off, whoever I could grab, pulled them by their back legs all the way to our garage and put them in the garage and separated them that way. Through all of that, we always noticed that Mozzie always seemed to be the dog that would just keep on going for Apollo. And Apollo would he would sort of back off and be like, okay, this dog is crazy. But then Mozzie would keep going for him and he would keep re-engaging. So it took us longer than we would like to admit. But after having witnessed what Bear did with Mozzie earlier that year, with a lesser bond to us, we trusted Apollo to use his discretion in essentially correcting Mozzie's behavior. Apollo had been with Mozzie from a puppy, so Mozzie was no strange dog either. Ultimately, after breaking up their previous arguments, we let the subsequent fights play out. They had a couple of reasonably big ones, and that was that. Mozzie respects Apollo, only in that he gives him space and doesn't challenge him anymore. I wouldn't say that he is submissive. He wouldn't roll over on the ground submitting to him. I don't think. I haven't seen that happen, but he does know to give him space, and he basically just reads the body language now. Apollo did a great job in teaching him that. What we did may not be the way you want to go. We were prepared for a vet visit if necessary and to interfere if it really went downhill, but it seemed that with Mozzie's personality, it would really be the only way for him to learn that he really can't stand up to these dogs. We'll talk about Artemis. We ended up getting her back, and we'll talk about another dog that we got the same month that we got Artemis back. We plunged in both feet into Livestock Guardian Dogs, and we don't necessarily recommend that, but we have learned so much over the last couple of years. Till then, happy homesteading.
Bye.